Welcome to the Mink and the Monk. What? That was wrong. What did I say?
We're keeping it, Matt. You better finish the intro. Go.
Welcome to the Mink and the Monk. I'm your host, Matt Fink. That's your other host,
Brad Monko.
And we have the pleasure, the absolute joy and pleasure of having Mr. Joey Eppard in the studio today.
Hey, the pleasure is all mine.
How you doing, Joey?
I'm doing good.
Yeah?
It's nice to sit down at a table with some fellow musicians.
Yeah. Well, are you talking about Brad too, or are we just talking? Sorry. I like to start out each podcast by insulting Brad so his dad is angry at me. So that's where we're starting.
Good to break the ice.
It's my dad's favorite part. It's his birthday this week, so he'll be pleasantly surprised.
Good. What's your dad's name?
Ken.
Happy birthday, Ken.
Yeah, happy birthday.
And Tom. Tom's birthday is also this week. So
happy birthday, Tom. I haven't seen Tom in about...
Actually, we know it's today. Tom's birthday's today.
Happy birthday, Tom.
Yeah, happy birthday, Tom.
So it's today. So what's his social security number? We'll give everybody...
3, 6, 4.
Yeah. I haven't seen your brother in, I think, since 2011.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's been a minute since he left St. Rose.
When was the last time you saw him, Joey?
I think it may have been in another sphere.
Might have been.
All right, let's pull this back to Joey.
Pull this back to Joey. I had other things to say, and now I'm going blank. But anyway, welcome. I wanted to talk to you for a while on this podcast because I have the pleasure of playing with you, I think often. We could describe it as often, but for the last, was it 6 years? 7, 6?
Man, has it been that long? Wow, I don't know.
Like, were you in it from the start? The Reelin' in the Years band? Was it like...
I was not.
Okay.
I was not in it from the start.
I'm trying to think of when you might have got...
I was there when Scott Petito and Jerry Marotta decided they were going to do it.
Really?
I happened to be standing nearby.
Was that at Scott's house?
It was actually on stage at the Bearsville Theater. They were sound checking for... there was some type of a benefit show I think we were doing.
Really?
And I was doing, just got brought in to do a couple songs. I was doing Love's in Need of Love Today.
Oh, nice.
And then they asked me to sing A Change Is Gonna Come.
Damn.
And so I was like, yeah.
And that's when and all of a sudden Steely Dan came up?
Yeah, they were talking about, I think there might have been maybe a Paul Green Rock Academy show that was going to be the music of Steely Dan, and Jerry and Scott were somehow involved with that. And they were talking about, we should get into this, because I know Jerry had been thinking about, following that Genesis tribute band that was doing so well.
Yeah. What, his own thing? Or something else?
No, something else.
Oh, wow. Okay.
This was kind of before he was even doing the security project. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was there when I heard him talk about it, but they didn't ask me to be part of it for a few years, I think, maybe 2 years. And then that came in and I sang like 3 or 4 songs, and then it was 5 or 6, and then it was 7 or 8, and then
21
it was like,
or 22.
Yeah, then it was 22 or 23.
Yeah, 24. I think that's where we're at.
Yeah.
And there's 23.
Did you ever work on any of that repertoire before you ended up doing that kind of gig? Was like Donald Fagen like an influence on you, because you're like a hell of a composer and singer already, and I know for as much of a cult following he is regarded as, especially for his composition, as being like a huge character.
The music is in my DNA for sure, because I grew up in a musical family, and my dad was a Steely Dan fan, so those records were always playing, and I, when I was really young, like 14 years old, at the time I was getting into like the early Fish, and those records were actually pretty cool. It got a little wonky after that, but when I heard Steely Dan, I was like, oh my god, Fish wishes they could write songs like this is so next level, and it just kind of blew my mind, and I've loved the music ever since, and just kind of opened me up. But I never tried to learn any of it or sing any of it or perform any of it, and I just did original music for like 25 years, and then Jerry called me one day, and he had asked me to sing for the security project, and I was like, Jerry, I don't know, man, like, you couldn't have a more opposite voice than Peter Gabriel. I just don't really sound like that, so I wasn't at the time. I wasn't sure that it was a good idea. And then he went out and got a female lead singer. So he wasn't trying to,
he just was doing the music of it.
Yeah, he wanted it to be different, and that was my bad. But when he called me again and asked me about doing the reeling thing, I was like, yeah, absolutely. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. Jerry Murata, we're talking about, by the way. I don't know if I ever did. We say his last name?
Well, yeah,
I think I did. I think I said it in the beginning there.
Well, yeah, he's first guest on the show. Check out the episode.
Jerry. Episode 1.
But also, I mean, when you actually went back and learned the songs, did you like already kind of know in your ears like there was so much hip stuff going on, or did having to learn the songs like teach you anything new about like your approach to composition or even singing? Absolutely.
I mean, I think that's one of the main reasons I wanted to do it. Was like, well, I'm just trying to figure out what am I capable of, what can I learn from this? Because I didn't have any formal education musically. It was just all kind of experience, and it's what I did for fun, but it kind of became my career.
Your formal education was you grew up Eppard.
I grew up Eppard.
You grew up in a family. I mean, that's as good as we could kind of go back to that, start at the roots of this, because I've talked to I've talked about you is T. Hickes, and because I've hung out with with Jimmy, your dad. I love your dad. He's an incredible human being, wonderful musician, and hilarious. Have you ever met Jimmy ever? Have you ever met?
I may have met him. Yeah.
Yeah, I know you have. But he used to. You guys, I think you were there too when we used to play in that big band in Kingston, and that's what.
Yeah, he would bring me.
And we would kind of like, we'd always talk, and then I met him. I think probably through Charlie Nicely is what I'm guessing.
Yeah.
But T was telling me that like you guys just kind of would just play, like, right, you kind of just grab some instrument, like, so like talk about growing up, like if you could, like when I'm sure, like, because I grew up in a musical family, there was always music happening, either my father practicing or records or movies with soundtracks that we were like, there was always constantly a harmonic underpinning to what we were doing.
Well, I mean, first and foremost, there was just a lot of great music getting played in the house,
Were there musicians in and out your whole life, coming through the door kind of thing?
I don't know if there was a lot of like music. We didn't really have a space where there was rehearsals happening until I made it in my bedroom later on.
Oh, okay.
But I think it was just so many classic records, and before I even knew it, it's like I knew it. I mean, I was 3 years old, and there's tons of Stevie Wonder getting played, and I just, that's really good for you. It's really good for you.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just, it was in my DNA. I started writing songs. I wrote my first song when I was 3 years old, and I haven't stopped. I just kept going with it. And
is it Static? Is that the tune?
No. We're not going to perform this one, but it was my first song.
You remember it?
I do remember it.
Wow.
Yeah, very basic.
What were you singing about at 3?
I mean, I think it was a little abstract. Okay. But it's just about a guy taking a walk, but he had kind of heavy footsteps. Wow. That's pretty much
very cool.
As good as I can make it sound.
Do you remember a melody, or does it story? Like, I've been meaning to ask you that too after listening to a bunch of your music this week. Like, is it lyrics first? Is it melody first? Is there an order? Does it come out together? Do you have a melody?
Definitely a combo. It's definitely. I mean, when I write, I'm a mumbler.
Okay.
I try to get out of my own way, and I'm not trying to make sense.
It comes through you.
It's just a feeling and a shape, but your brain has the ability to organize information. It wants to make sense out of things, So you look up at the sky and you see things in the clouds. When you listen back after you've been mumbling a bunch of shit, and you go in the other room and listen from far away. Oh shit, that line was dope. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I never would have thought of that. but I did think of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and you find a thread, and then the hard part is to finish it, you know, to bring everything to the table, to honor what the thing you liked about it and carry it through to the end. So you get a lot of 75%, and they kind of hang around for a few years before you can.
That's a good ratio, though. If you're getting 75%,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Way better ratio than mine.
Yeah.
Well, you know.
So you're like a conduit. Is that how you're thinking? You're letting it come through you?
Well, tapping into something, but you know, but like I said, it's like our brain has powers that we might not fully understand. You know, we can do things.
Pretty sure we have no understanding
No
whatsoever.
clue.
Yeah.
But that's what's exciting to me about music is I want to surprise myself.
Wow.
But then, you know, I go through phases, you know, like any artist, you know, I went through that's it. I'm done with the abstract. I'm done with like fancy lyrics. I'm just going to say some basic shit that's, you know, as real as it gets. You know, I've kind of gone through that phase recently.
Okay.
And now I'm back to some wacky shit again.
So this song that you was it what was the America one that you were telling? So is that what you're saying? Are you looking at that as more abstract, fancy, or are you looking at that as pretty straight ahead?
Oh, that's pretty basic.
Okay.
That is basic. Yeah, there's nothing fancy in there. No metaphors really.
Okay.
I mean,
yeah. I was listening to. I realized after I wish I joined your Patreon page long ago. I didn't. I mean, I know that you had it, but I didn't realize.
Thanks for joining at all. I mean, God, thank you.
Well, join his page, by the way. So it's Joey Eppard. It's just at Patreon, right?
Yep.
Yeah. You have, like, I looked again this morning and the music changed. Are you constantly loading, or is it just the order changes when you go to it? Like I went on it today, or maybe I clicked on one of the other. You have like 4 boxes you can pick from, and maybe I just picked a different box, but it was like a completely different set list of things than it was the day before. But that could be just.
Oh, you know, I mean, I don't necessarily see it from the angle you see it from. So, but I mean, I try to post stuff pretty frequently.
Yeah, you're a pretty prolific songwriter, though, right? I mean,
I've written a lot of songs, and I keep writing, and I'm not sure what to do about it.
Start a Patreon page.
Yeah, so that's what I did. I started a Patreon, and I let my supporters hear what I'm working on.
Yeah,
but I'm a little hung up these days on when do I release anything to the
and
actual.
What format do you release in? Because it's hard to know what people are
right,
how they're consuming what it is you're putting out.
Right, I feel like I went away for a few years, and I came back, and I'm just like, holy shit, like there's a lot of different avenues and ways to get yourself out there. So I just want to honor the work I've put in and kind of do it right. But that's not where my skill set lies, you know. So I'm trying to figure out that next step.
You mean your skill set lies in creating the actual work, is what you're saying, though?
Yeah, I love writing songs.
Yeah.
I don't know, you know. Then it's like, what do you do with them?
Yeah, I don't.
Well, the industry's changing like so rapidly. Patreon's the new big thing, and then it's like, who knows what's going to be the big thing in 5 years. I mean, do you feel like Patreon has made the biggest difference for you? Do you feel like YouTube is still like the major player for a lot of people? Like, where do you think the industry is headed as far as like the platform that's going to benefit musicians the most?
I mean, that's a good question. I don't claim to have my finger on the pulse. You know, I just like having control over what I'm doing, and Patreon just helps you create a monthly income as an artist. You know, whatever you're doing, it doesn't have to be music or.
And you own the rights to publishing to all.
Yeah, I'm in control. I can do whatever the.
You can
whatever the fuck I want.
Yeah.
Oh, that felt good.
Feels good. Feels good.
Dad, close your ears.
Sorry. But yeah, there's something I love about that freedom. Like, no one's freaking out that I'm letting people hear my music while I'm working on it. You know, I like it. I like being able to.
Yeah, I noticed that you put up different mixes, and then you actually are like, "Hey, let me know what you think." It's actually intimate.
Yeah,
it's like
no, I want to interact. That's what's exciting to me, is that people change the direction of what I'm doing.
Yeah,
and they literally do.
And it's in almost real time, which is actually you had done. I'm forgetting the name of it. There's another tune on there where you actually stated that I had more time to try different vocal things, and you were talking about like your heroes of the past, not that they would have loved having this ability to kind of try different. And at the end of that tune, it's just your soloed voice from one of the tracks of your voice, and what you did to it aesthetically was very cool. And you don't realize the full impact, or I didn't anyway, the full impact of the sound of what it was you were doing until it's just soloed. And then you hear like, wow, that's like I would never think to engineer a voice to sound like that.
Yeah, I mean, I have I like when things break up a little bit, you know, like Sly and the Family Stone, like that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Especially on a groovier tune like that. So I was, you know.
Yeah, that tune was.
I was hitting the.
And that's you playing drums on there too?
That is me playing drums,
God damn.
If you can see how I do the drums, it's pretty funny.
Really? It's not live in real time, or it is?
Oh, no, it is. I mean, I did a bunch of takes, and then I can edit it. Together, you know, because I'm, like I said, like I feel the pocket, but I don't necessarily have all the skills of like a real drummer that's going to go out and, you know, play it live. But I can get the pocket happening. You know what I mean? And sometimes that's the most important thing of all to me is that it feels right. Because I can play with drummers that play circles around me and can do things on, you know, I'll never even sniff, but the basic pocket of the song doesn't feel right. You know, and so that's, you know, I have drummer friends who are like, they like singer-songwriters on drums better than like professional drummers because they're trying to play what the song wants. Yeah. As opposed to,
well, you feel it immediately as soon as that track comes on. I mean, you just.
Well, thanks, man.
Yeah, I wish I had. Like I said, I'll go back to where I started, which was I wish I had done more dive into your catalog, just because like last night I had it back on as I was setting up the studio, and I mean you played for 2 hours and I only knew one of the songs that I had heard before, but I feel like I know all these songs after I hear them for the first time, which is pretty astounding. That's a great characteristic to have as a writer and performer, but it's a compelling pocket that you, whether you're playing the guitar as a drum, you know, the way you're doing or with I didn't know it was, the first thing I thought was with the track with drums was, man, who's playing drums? And it's the same kind of energy that you hit the guitar with. So like, I should have realized that, but the first time I saw you play drums was a couple of weeks ago. You posted like some little snippet of you playing, and I was like, God damn, that feels great. And I don't remember. I think it was just you playing a groove. Was it for a tune?
No, I was just playing. My son Julian, you know, had expressed some interest in playing the drums. Oh yeah. So I leapt at the opportunity to get a drum kit in the house.
Me too.
And now I play it, and you know, he doesn't play it so much, but.
Worked out in the end though, didn't it?
It really did.
Yeah.
You know, and now I understand why my wife was kind of like, oh, you're getting him a drum kit, aren't you? I see. But yeah, he's got this great little kit. It's really small, but it sounds really good. So I kind of finagle this thing into my bedroom where my recording setup is.
Oh, really?
You know, everything. And it's this little kit, and I only put 2 mics on it. And all I'm trying to capture is the spirit of the drums that I want to hear. And I just kind of play along to the track. And, you know, there's nothing that's more fun for me than just playing along to a track on the drums. Yeah. And then listening back and being like, oh, God, I suck. You know? Or like, oh, this right there, that was... that
little snippet.
That little moment there. Yeah. How can I do more of that? You know? Yeah. It just teaches you a lot. And so I'm, you know, I have fun and, you know, and I think what I was talking about, you know, in the past, you know, other musicians could only really dream about doing this. You know, what would it be like if you could be all the musicians in the band? You know, it's like I can actually do that now. So I'm trying to check it out, and it's really making me appreciate playing with other people.
So eventually, is your plan to get everybody fired and reeling and just make it a solo gig for you?
God, no. I would never ever want to try to do that.
No, but it is amazing. And I think about that with different musicians that I know you admire and love like I do, like with someone like Stevie Wonder, where in the studio as a having access to the stuff that he did with Malcolm.
Yeah.
And just Malcolm Cecil and Rest in peace, Malcolm. Like, it's amazing now that back then, that would have been, what, 1972, 4, somewhere in there, where with the size of Tonto and what that was that they were creating all those sounds with. And now you seemingly can set up drums in your bedroom with 2 mics and get like some really incredible music happening.
Yeah,
and,
no,
like,
absolutely.
The simplicity
It's
of it
like,
is really incredible.
I'm just, doing the bare minimum just to get the spirit, and then I can plug in samples, and blend them in to get the, the sound kind of up to the quality I'm looking for. So
everything that you're releasing on Patreon with the exception of that studio thing we were talking about earlier with your friend who does it, that's in his home. The 3 TV.
Yeah. That's Willie Wells, WW Sound. He's got a great setup.
Yeah.
At his place, so we can do some more, some pretty wild video stuff, and he's a great engineer too. So. But other than that, the other stuff you're doing when you release your own stuff, that's all you doing everything. You're engineering and doing everything on Logic. I'm doing it all on my own, and. Trying to learn as much as I can. You playing bass and keyboard on those as well? Yep. Wow. Yeah. And let me just say, I love the bass. Do you? Well, do you have your guitar tuned differently? The Ovation, does that have a lower string on it, or is it just, are you running it through? Like, it sounds like you're hitting some actual low bass notes on when you're playing solo. Oh, well, what I actually do is I split my signal, and I run through an octave pedal. Okay. I usually split it 3 ways, like the basic acoustic sound, octave pedal for the low end, and then I'm trying to gear my playing to be able to control those low notes, so they're actually the root notes, where they want to be, and then I'll usually do something with some more effects, like a little bit more electric sounding. Okay. Just to kind of... All right, so then I'll ask one more question, and I know you probably have a bunch of questions, but... So the first time I heard you play with that same Ovation, you've had that one for a while, your acoustic guitar, or do you just have a bunch that look like that? I've had a bunch that actually look like that. Oh, yeah, okay. I did. I was very blessed to get a sponsorship from Ovation back in the day when I was spending a lot of time on the road. And I went to NAMM, met with them, and they passed around a video that had been kind of going viral on YouTube. Okay. And they were like, "Oh yeah, absolutely, man." So they, I didn't take full advantage of it. Like they would have been willing to probably send me guitars every year, and you were just being a nice guy. Yeah, I kind of am just a nice guy, and I'm like, well, I'm not on tour. You're not really gonna. But a lot of people will tell me like, "Oh, I got this guitar because of you." So I know I sold some guitars for them. So. I'm pretty sure you getting a new one every year wasn't going to break them, but I don't know. Maybe they were on. They were on tough. I don't know. They did like close the factory at one point, so I'm not sure. And did they blame you? Were they like, "Fuck Joey Eppard"? Yeah, Joey Eppard. He beats these things up. It's ridiculous. Have you seen this guy? Can't afford to stay open. We sent this guy a new guitar every year. This son of a bitch. I mean, when I was, back in those days, I was breaking all my strings. Were you really? Yeah. You seem like you have such a light touch on the instrument. Oh, no, I beat the hell out of that. That's why I played Ovation, because they could actually take the beatings I would give them. And I would, the end of our set, I would start going crazy, and then boom, a string would pop, another one would pop. Once I got 2, because of the way I'm playing, they all start popping off. Wow. And then it comes down to like the E and the A, and I would just rip them off. And I'd hold my guitar by the strings and helicopter it over my head. Oh, that might have been a little much for this. So the people, it sold a lot of merch, man.
Well, I feel like once you've broken 2, it's just like keep going. Yeah,
no, I mean it was like one string. Okay, I knew I was going to break them all because, I don't know, people would remember that. And it happened completely naturally the first time it happened. And then I was just like, it's this song. It was a particular song that... I couldn't practice that song because I knew it would happen, but I'd have to restring my guitar every day. I'd have to replace the pickups constantly because sometimes I would shave pieces of the pickup by ripping my strings off. Wow. Yeah. I'm not doing that anymore. I've never seen you. Maybe we should add this to some of the shows you're doing.
The most punk rock.
Oh yeah, no, we went pretty hard.
Well, I mean, the acoustic guitars. It's amazing watching that video because you're an entire band. You don't really think about. that there's not a drummer behind you or there's not a bass player behind you. And to be able to rock an ovation like that and still have the whole rock god guitar stance and still pull off the whole stage persona and presence of what you're doing is actually pretty incredible.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. But my question, I didn't get to it, Brad, so just wait a minute, okay? I see it. No, but the first time I saw you, I was like, I'm watching you, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing or seeing. But maybe and I remember asking your father about it, and I don't think you can tell me maybe. You're using an alternate tuning.
I do use alternate tunings.
And then I've watched you play standard tuning, and I didn't realize that you're very comfortable with that. But like the alternate tuning, was it something that you came up with, or is it something that a particular tuning that everybody uses? Because when I watch your fingers,
everybody, what happened? I just played in standard, and then I let my bass player borrow my acoustic guitar, and he gave it back to me in open E. And so I picked it up, and I was just like too lazy to change it. And then I wrote a song, and then I wrote another song and another song, and before I knew it, I had a set of songs in that tuning. And
do you experiment with a lot of different tunings, or is it mostly E?
I think if I'm feeling stagnant, like I'm not surprising myself with anything, I might change things up.
Okay.
Or I might come up with some tuning and record some shit, and then I have no idea what that tuning was, and I'll never figure the part out again. Or,
wow.
But I learned to gravitate towards open E minor.
Okay.
It's much better. It's much more flexible because it's easy to make a minor major.
Yeah.
But it's hard to make a major minor. So open E major is kind of a limiting in that sense. You can only play certain voicings, and you come up with some cool sounding stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the open E minor. It's,
I never thought of it like that.
A lot more flexible, and so yeah, got a bunch of tunes in that. Whatever, drop D, might do some of that. I like going a little lower nowadays too. Like doing like an open D minor is kind of nice.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's your from low to high is what? Your string names. What do you tune it to?
Well, so I'm tuning down from E to D.
E to D. Yep.
But then
leave the A.
Yeah, the A and the D are the same.
Right.
And then everything else is down.
Oh,
to.
So the G just goes to an F.
Right.
Okay. Cool. I don't really play in open tunings, so like I remember watching your hands, and I'm like, I have no idea how is that happening, because I don't recognize any of the shapes.
Right.
When I first saw, and you're doing you're playing like a flamenco. I don't know what you're doing with what you would call, if that's just the Joey Eppard technique, but
I think it's the Joey Eppard technique, but they're
it's so subtle. You hear all these different rhythmic things, and then you hear the moving bass part, and you're just orchestrating entirely from the guitar, which as a guitarist, that's fascinating to see, because my head doesn't work that way at all. I'm like trying to make sense of it.
Gotcha.
And I can't, which I thought was amazing to me. So that was why I wanted to get to the I've seen you play your black Les Paul, and you do tapping on that. I think it's a Les Paul. Is that a Les Paul?
It's an ESP.
It's an ESP.
Actually.
It looks like a Les Paul style.
It does, yeah.
But on the acoustic, it's really unique what you do. Same on the electric, but I remember when I saw you, it's like when it's just you, it's like amazing to see that much music and melody coming out of one's thing on the stage. Like you're not hitting pedals, you're not playing with drum machines. You're not, it just seems to be happening very incredibly easy. It looks easy when you're doing it.
I mean, it's happening. It's all happening in the moment. I've never got into the looping thing.
Uh-huh.
I kind of missed that bus, but yeah. I try to maximize what I can do on my own, and I guess that's only kind of grown in the last few years too, since I've been
at
in
home
my bedroom by myself mostly.
So the pandemic was productive for you?
It was actually, it was really good for me, because I was in a rut. But before that, the whole becoming a dad thing, and I had started working a job that taught me a lot, but it wasn't good for me. and it wasn't great financially, and I was just kind of beating myself into the ground. And I don't know if if you guys have experienced this, but sometimes there's definitely some self-loathing for being a musician and not and I think I was, in a way, I was punishing myself a little bit, just trying to not looking at enough possibilities for how to create income from music. And the pandemic took me out of my work grind that I had gotten into, and I was like, well, I have time for music now. Let me start a Patreon. Let me see. And I haven't gone back to the work grind. I'm just,
So so Patreon has been great for you then. Yeah.
Okay. It's been. I mean, I'm still I got to grow it more because I want to do more. But I'm in a place right now where I was able to kind of not totally replace the income I had coming in but it's enough that I'm staying afloat. And
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So you've kind of figured out how to make money in the music world without sacrificing your entire human being as part of that. Like you're like, it seems like a great combination of things to still earn you some money. Yeah, it's incredibly beneficial psychologically, I would say. Not as much self-loathing then, you're saying? I feel a lot better. Things had gotten dark for me for a minute there, and definitely I'm much. I think I learned what music brings to the table in terms of keeping me healthy mentally, and that's a huge part of it. That's incredible. Congratulations, man. Thanks. That sounds amazing.
Now, on the topic, while we're still close to talking about the solo performances, obviously you put in so much for these like amazing compositions and these guitar arrangements, and you are such an accomplished vocalist, and you've got all these things in line for your live performances solo wise. How much of your brain power is going towards like, this is what I'm doing with my body, this is who I'm looking at in the audience, this is how I'm presenting myself? Is there other parts of the act that you still sharpen or have to like think about a certain way?
I mean, I'm not like, I don't think of myself as a natural front person. I'm just kind of somebody who loves music and loves performing it. I'm comfortable on stage, but I'm not comfortable being that guy who talks to the audience, or it's like, that's not me, that's not really who I am. I'd rather just get up there and just be myself, and it can be quirky and even awkward. And then I just, have to be like, all right, dude, shut up and play a song. Stop trying to talk. It never goes well. So yeah, I definitely don't. I try not to lock eyes with anyone. That's never comfortable.
Yeah, I don't.
Especially if they don't look away, and then you don't look away, and then it's I don't know. That's.
Are you singing to them as you're locked eyes, or you're saying just talking? Because that can get weird.
Yeah, I try not to look.
I never know what to do. I like being the bassist in the back because it's less pressure than like the whole like when like people like singing or guitar solo or whatever, like someone who's like really right there with the audience, like especially in a bigger band. I like it when I'm in the back and I don't have to think about that as much. I can that's where I like to be. I like to let the music do the talking. But I did open my eyes once. We were in Detroit, and guy in the front row, I opened my eyes, he was right there looking right at me, and he had two middle fingers up just looking at me. He wanted me to see just how dissatisfied he was with my music.
Really? Oh my god.
Oh yeah, we were on tour with Dillinger Escape Plan, and this guy was, he's a huge fan of theirs, and he wasn't wanting to hear anything outside of what he came to see. So I mean, actually, it was kind of funny.
What did you do back? Did you just stare at him the rest of the show?
I threw my wedding ring at him. Yeah, it was actually accidental. But I was really sweaty, and my wedding ring flew off my finger into the crowd.
Holy cow!
And then I said, if somebody finds my wedding ring and brings it to the merch table, I'll give you $75 worth of merch.
And
they brought it back.
Somebody brought that guy?
It was that guy. No, he had it on his middle finger. No, it was not him.
I was going to say
yeah. No, it wasn't him, but yeah, it did restore my faith in humanity. So,
that's amazing, man.
Well, another thing about your music. I mean, I a lot of what I was listening to, I feel like I was very notably like had a lot of strong storytelling elements to it. I think that's like such a hard part of composition and writing lyrics, and I think a lot of your songs had like even when I couldn't, on like a first listen I didn't catch everything, there were lines that would hook me and I would get a picture from the line. It's also like well planned out that way. Do you have like, specifically when it comes to storytelling in your writing, do you have any big influences, whether they're musical or even just completely separate from music, someone who's a writer?
I have a lot of influences for sure. I mean, I listen to so many different types of music, but the classics too, like Joni Mitchell. Ani DeFranco is actually a big influence on me.
I'm not familiar.
Ani is, she's worth checking out. She's a great songwriter, and a sick guitar player. And she was doing it in the 90s. In the early 90s, when she started. She's coming to the Bearsville Theater in August.
Oh, yeah?
But she, for me, it was, she just had a way of writing that was, it was always very personal, not really story stuff when it came to her, but just her way of writing and playing was a big influence on me. And, I always had my dad in my ear too. He was like, try to write a song without saying I or me. Or, you don't have to make it about you all the time. You know what I mean? It's like, nobody wants to hear you whine about your little bullshit.
Yeah, what would the guy with both his middle fingers up be telling you to write about?
Yeah. But you gotta, so that, that was an interesting challenge. I did, try to write some songs without, using myself in the song, but then I don't shy away from it either. If that's what wants to come out, that's what comes out. And then there's the what I was explaining before of just doing it from a more musical place of just kind of mumbling and like, I'm hearing this melody, I'm not sure what the words want to be, what shape feels right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then letting my brain kind of listen peripherally.
Yeah.
And finding, jotting down phrases and seeing what comes out. And then it kind of surprises me. And then it's like my interpretation is actually really not that much more valid than anyone else's. You know what I mean? Because it sort of came out of this less sort of frontal lobe kind of place. It's more, open to interpretation. And, I try to write in a bunch of different modes.
Yeah, that makes sense when I think about your catalog, because like there's things that are like we talked about this on this podcast with other people. I'm melody first.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can remember it takes me hundreds of plays to get to the lyrics of something, and when you realize I think we were talking about Fagin. Because the melodies are so incredible, the harmonies are so deep, and then you check the lyrics out and you realize sometimes it could be about nothing at all. It's still incredible. But when I was like, you strike me as someone who writes from a lot of different inputs. Like some things sound autobiographical, but other things sound like you strike me as someone who's read like the Lord of the Rings and fantasy kind of stuff, but maybe not. But that I get that.
Sure,
I get that kind of vibe as well. It's still the same kind of melodic content, always melodic. Like I didn't hear anything where I thought of anything other than also the pocket that you're singing. So like other than the melody and the time, there's not much going on. But it's incredible to me the amount of different, like some players just write from a standpoint of loving one another, being loved, loving someone, but you can go on a whole other journey that's amazing to hear with your sense of melody that you're able to pull from all those different things.
Now, are there any like writers or speakers or anyone like that who have influenced like your concept of telling a story, whether it's verbally or through music?
Oh boy, well, I mean, I'm sure.
Well, of course there, but like, in particular, is there like a heavy hitter or a specific lesson that you got out of someone, like they were doing something that?
Well, my first job, I was working in a gas station when I was 15, and at this gas station, it was kind of run down, and it was like there was a really nice Mobil across the street, so nobody really came to this gas station. And the same people that own the mobile owned this place, and it was just they owned it just so that no one was competing with their mobile, really. But it still had gas and like some chips and stuff. But yeah, one day I was just, we were often just sitting there looking for stuff to do, and there's this like weird desk, and I just I was like, what's in there? Like it was just kind of like this wooden thing, and I'm just reaching in. I can't see. I'm not sure what I'm feeling, and then I'm like, that feels like a book. Like what is this thing? And I pull this thing out, dust it off. It's this book. It's got no cover. I don't know who it's by, and I was just like, I just started reading it because I was working there. And it turns out the book was called Dahlgren. It was written by Samuel R. Delany, who was kind of like the first big African-American science fiction writer. And this was written, I think, back in the 60s. And it was a really amazing book. I mean, but really all over the place. The writing is beautiful. Like the writing is... unlike
so you happen to be working at a crappy gas station.
Yeah. How did this book get in there?
And you pull out what turned to be a life-altering kind of... That's insane.
Yeah. Just the way the words he used, it just hit me. I was just right at that age where I was creative enough and like, damn, this guy's blowing my mind. It's like whatever he describes. And the story wasn't linear. It was a 900-page book. But I didn't get the beginning, because it was ripped off. So I just I jumped in, but I got sucked right into this story.
Wow. I got to check this book out.
And the thing about this book is that, it's mystery after mystery, and you're like, fuck, I need to know, like, what is the story behind this? And it's one of those things where you never find out.
Wow.
And some people at the end of the book are just filled with rage, because I saw some of the reviews, like when I got into looking around, that they had invested so much. Wow. But it taught me a lot. It was like, no, it's really about that feeling of that excitement that you want to know. It's like creating that is really powerful, and I think it just had a big impact on me on how I write. And I read some more of his work, and just a great writer that I wouldn't have discovered otherwise. And the wildest thing is that the book just like kind of, it becomes a journal that the main character is writing towards the end. Okay. And it's just kind of like haphazard, and then it's just writing, and it never finishes the sentence. So it ended incomplete, just the way it started for me, which was incomplete. Well. And then I finally bought the book for the full thing. And the wildest thing was that the incomplete last line wraps around to the first line of the book. The book starts incomplete. It starts mid-sentence.
Wow. So it's like a Tarantino movie.
I was thinking like The Sopranos when you were saying like the unresolved questions and stuff. Yeah. I mean, I still haven't seen the last season of The Sopranos, but everyone says like the ending is like unresolved like that, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's just, I don't know if you guys got into the show Lost.
No. He did I forget his name who wrote that, but
J.J. Abrams was
and he did another show after that I kind of got into, where people would just disappear, like it was like the same, but like nothing is resolved. It's just this, you're living with a void, and this is what happened. But I know that I never got into Lost, but I probably should.
Lost was similar. People got very invested in all these mysteries, and you're like, I can't wait for this to get resolved. And the resolution was terrible. It just sucked. And it was just like, I wish it was never resolved, because nothing was going to be as good as what I was imagining. You know what I mean? And the way mystery can inspire you. So, just a similar sort of thing there.
That's so cool.
That's funny, because when I think of the way your tunes unfold, you're not writing about the tune resolving. You're writing about the emotion of whatever it is but it doesn't have to resolve. It clearly doesn't have to resolve, but that's cool that you're able to do that in your writing. It doesn't surprise me at all that you're saying that. You're a fan of that.
Now, I wanted to ask a little bit about, on a similar tangent, I heard you talk in an interview about being a visual artist when you were younger, and being really into comics. I mean, when I was young, but way before I was into music, from a very young age, I was very into drawing. Mm-hmm. I was very into like cartoons, like Sunday Funnies comic strips, and then later on I was into like Japanese animation and that kind of art style. And before I wanted to do music, I wanted to be like a graphic novel artist or an illustrator or something like that. Like how did that, like what part of your life did that occupy when you were really into that type of thing?
I mean, that's who I was known as mostly, as the artist, like the guy who's always drawing. In school, that was me. People would come to me like, oh, can you they would pay me. You're
already better than me.
I mean, I had this thing for a while too where people would they'd buy Converse and bring them to me, and I would paint them because they're canvas. So you get the white Converse, and then I would do a custom paint job on them. And
I paid a kid to do that to my jean jacket when I was in.
I'll see, yeah.
But
that was me. No,
he never did it.
My mother did it.
My mother pulled up to his house and demanded. She went up to his store. She goes, "I want my son's jean jacket back," and it didn't have anything on it. He had it for like 2 months, which was a lot of time when you were in 8th grade. But anyway, I wish I had known you instead.
Wish I could have helped you out there.
Yeah, well, there's still time. I still have the jean jacket.
Well, yeah, just let me know, man. I mean, I might be a little rusty, but I got a little more into music later on. But yeah, no, I mean, visual art came naturally to me, and I was good at it, and it was kind of the one thing I could latch on to, like, because there was a lot of things I wasn't good at, and when I was really young, it was like the person I spent the most time with was 2 years older than me, so he was just better at everything.
Yeah.
And I was like, God, it doesn't help your confidence. I mean, there's a big difference between, a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old, or, what I mean? It's huge. So, kind of growing up with this kid, the one thing I could do, I could outdraw him. And until one day we sat down and we actually put on a Tears for Fears album, and we started recording ourselves along with it. Oh. And I just started busting out like melodies and song, and he got so mad because he couldn't do it. And then that's when I was like, oh, I got a little thing with music, like,
Really? It was just on a lark? Like just happened like that?
It just happened like that. Yeah, we had a thing to record with. I mean, I was doing musical things before that, but nothing formal or anything. And we were just playing, but we thought we were playing the album and recording on a separate cassette deck. Yeah. Because there was some instrumental stuff on there. We were making up. And I started.
Was this your first album? That big, huge album, like songs from the big house?
Songs from the Big Chair.
Big Chair, right?
Yeah, yeah. It was that record, and I forget which track it is, but there's an instrumental. We were recording ourselves over the instrumental.
That record was huge, though. I think that was like 83, 84. Does that make sense?
That sounds about right.
As I was a kid when I was listening to that, and it was on the radio. Just constantly.
I mean, I still love that record.
The radio when we were younger. There was this little box, and you would turn it on, and it would just be advertisements for Marlboros and then some music.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, very, very different.
Yeah,
very different than how you grew up, probably. I'm guessing. Yeah.
And MTV would play videos that went with these songs, and you get to see the artists, and it was so cool. I mean, it was like. Hell yeah!
It'd be great to hear some music on there.
Yeah.
All I see is guys getting hit in the nuts. And
that's it's very sad.
Yeah, it's a very different TV station.
Congratulations, Rob Dyrdek. You seem like you're doing very well. I mean, just I can relate to that idea of coming from visual art beforehand, and it's weird to me. It's I would love to spend that time. I remember it being very zen, getting to sit down and draw, but I feel like it's so far gone after, I guess, putting so much more time into music. I mean, compared to the time I put into drawing, which felt like a lot when I was little, it feels like nothing now after the hours I put in on bass.
I mean, I don't know if you have any kids or if you plan to or anything.
I don't think so. No.
One of the nice things, though, is when you start doing art projects together and you start rediscovering that side of yourself, because you're doing an art project and you're like, oh, shit.
Oh, yeah, I'm ready. I
like this.
I'm ready to get back on the Legos.
Yeah, get into some Legos. Yeah, whatever it is. Man, we just did a pretty sweet volcano the other day.
Nice.
No, but one of the I'm not sure how well known this is, but I was actually working my concept for 3 in the early days. I had a comic book that I was making to go along with the band, and it was moving forward incredibly slowly because I'm just like so highly detailed in the work I would do. Mm-hmm. That, you know, I had only drawn up like, and you know, I was doing the pages were large, they were big. So I think I had like 2 pages done, but they were really good looking stuff, and I was doing everything, and I was trying to, you know, it probably wasn't meant to be because it was just too much work. You know, I can't do all the music and
you're writing all the songs
and make a comic book and do the pencils and the illustrations and the writing for that, and then my brother started a band, and their main thing is it's a band with a comic book, but the lead singer and songwriter doesn't do any of the artwork himself. He just tells the artists, you know, the concepts, and they do it. And they've really made quite a name for themselves, and have really, you know, done it justice, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it helps when you can have other, you can, what's that called? Delegate.
Yeah, delegate. Yeah, I suck at delegating.
Me too.
I only delegate to myself. That's my problem.
I mean, unless you have something else on the subject you want to touch on, you know, obviously there's a lot we could talk about with 3, but I'm interested to hear a little more about, I guess, just like ways you're fascinated with the number 3, which I've heard you talk about in interviews. And, you know, for me, I've been doing stand-up comedy for a little over a year now, and so many comedians obsess over the rule of 3. Yeah. And I know some comedians I love, like I think like Whitney Cummings, Jessica Kirsten, they literally have like psychological obsessions with the number 3. Like, oh, I got to do this 3 times. I got to, you know, about the number 3 a lot. And I was wondering, like, how deep does that obsession go for you, and like what ways has it manifested in your life?
Well, I could take it right back to the very beginning where it kind of like got in my head, and back in the day, you talked about you were into like, you know, Japanese animation and stuff. Well, some of the early stuff that we had access to, you know, back in the I guess it would have been probably like the very early 80s, you know. We had this channel. I don't know, you know, I guess it became Showtime. Okay. But for me, it was called Channel Z. I don't know if you had Channel Z. No, but the cable box had like all the basic channels, and then there was one that said Z. Mm-mm. So, I mean, I may have just been calling it Z Channel because that's what I turned it to get this channel. But it was pretty great, like, because late at night you could see boobies. And,
I was going to say, I was always looking for Channel X.
Yeah, no, Channel Z had some boobies on it.
Were they pixelated or were they real boobies?
They were real boobies, yeah.
You had an incredible TV experience compared to me then.
Yeah, no, you know, my grandfather would be watching too, and you know, we kind of like, this is cool. Yeah, no, it's cool.
It's so funny. Like,
I won't say anything.
We didn't have cable on our road until I was like 15. So we were literally, like Channel 11 for the Yankees. Channel 4 for Knight Rider, and then and the Cosby Show.
That one always put me to sleep.
But I'm saying, like, I didn't have the first time I saw boobies on TV. We'll just digress for a moment because this is important. The first time I saw boobies on TV was I was at my uncle Morty. So my great uncle Morty in Connecticut.
Yep.
And he had the whole cable thing. They lived in this nice condo with a pool and everything. We went there and we were swimming, and then afterwards we went inside. And I was sitting on the couch and just going through the channels, and then like all of a sudden there were boobs, and I was like, he knew I was 11, like, just like just totally glued to, like, I was like, and then like,
what's happening?
He broke the spell. He said, "Yeah, that's not for me. My Aunt Bess wanted that." And, like, you know, his wife, my Aunt Bess, like, they were in their 70s. I'm watching. Anyway, it was that was the first time I didn't know. Like, kids now grow up very, 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 very different. I mean, it was until I was 11 when I saw my first boobs that moved.
Yeah, I was just on the cusp with that stuff because I had dial-up at home when I was little. Right. But, you know, eventually, like, middle school, I had a couple friends with high-speed internet, boobs.com.
Boobs.
Literally one of the first.
Yeah, I know we've gotten too far away from what your inspiration in life is, but
now I can only think of boobs. I don't know what. No.
Back to the number 3. Have you ever seen a woman with 3 boobs?
What was that in?
Wasn't that?
Oh yeah,
Was that Kung Pao? Or is that one boob in Kung Pao?
No, I'm gonna say Schwarzenegger. And
you're absolutely right. It was
Total Recall.
Total Recall.
I haven't seen that movie, but I've heard references.
Yeah, we would reference that movie actually often when we were on tour because I hate air conditioning because I'm a singer.
And is air conditioning bad for the voice?
It's terrible.
I didn't know that.
It wrecks. It dries your voice out to like a husk, and then you go to sing notes and you're like, wow.
Like that. Well, there's no AC in this room, as the sweat on your brow will indicate. Right? So that's good. I didn't realize though.
So it would always be a fight in the van.
Hell yeah!
But they would reference that movie and they'd be like, ZL, Eppard, ZL. So
yeah.
Anyway, but I digress. Boobs.
Yep.
On Channel Z, and just so you know, this was only at my grandparents' house. I did not have Channel Z at home, so this was just on the weekends when I went over there.
You're spending a lot of time at your grandparents.
I did spend a lot of time there. I was there every single weekend.
Yeah, I bet.
Now it's all. Now I'm realizing. Why that was.
Joey's such a good boy. He's going over visiting his grandparents.
Why? He's always here. Oh man.
Please continue. I'll stop bringing up boobs.
But anyway, in addition to the boobs, earlier in the day they had these great cartoons, that were in early 80s there were just like, whoa, these are sick, like giant robots and stuff, and it was like the early Shogun Warriors, and there were these other just like super vintage, we would call it Japanimation, these cartoons. In this one, there were 3 main heroes, and like they came together, and like they were just super badass out there in space, and I think it was called Space Gateers. And so it just gave me this like sort of like, I was just so into it, and I was like, there's 3 of them, there has to be 3. And then I started drawing 3, and I was thinking about 3, and then you just start seeing 3 everywhere, 333. I definitely got kind of obsessed with 3, but then I just kept learning about 3, and then I just, you just kind of see it everywhere, and it kind of becomes a way of life, of my life having this connection to 3, and it always comes up for me. I mean, we were looking for a place, we kind of lost our spot in Woodstock, and now I live at 3 New York Street, and it's just like, of course I do, because, where else would I live?
It was also the Schoolhouse Rock magic number one,
yeah,
right? Isn't that?
Yeah,
I mean, that would have been around the same time.
Oh yeah, 3 is the magic number.
Yeah.
Do you ever think about like I was saying, the rule of 3 that a lot of people talk about when you're like trying to group something together, whether it's musically or conceptually for your lyrics?
Why don't we explain the rule of 3 to me, because I'm not super familiar.
Well, like a lot of comedy writers will say that like that's like kind of the magic number. Obviously people will break it if they find it necessary, but a lot of people just say like, if you need to give a number of examples for something to kind of set up the punchline, that's like that's like the perfect amount of.
Or 3 stanzas in a song to tell the story as well, as I think is what also would tie in with that.
I mean, I don't know who else uses it. I hear comedians talk about it the most, but I feel like it works with whatever.
Yeah, I mean, now that you mention it, I'm like, God, that is my formula.
Well,
I'm like, three choruses.
Yeah, or the tune Static. There's 3.
Yeah,
there's 3. I just was diving into that one again, but there's 3 stanzas, right?
Honestly, it's so deep, man. And like when I'm engineering things, I always go to multiples of 3 with anything I do, like levels.
Really?
I'm like, oh well, that
And
if I'm close, if I'm like, if I've got something at like 20, 22, I'm just going to put it at 21, because it's like, I don't know. There's like a 3 thread that just runs through things on all these different levels for me,
I feel like I like the 0 or 0.5s or like, I don't know, or maybe even numbers more. I feel like that's more what my brain gravitates towards. I don't know why.
But I feel like we're living in the time where we're trying to move towards 3. Like we're stuck in this like duality where people aren't necessarily integrating like their consciousness You know what I mean? It's like everything, people are like living in their own stream of reality over here, and they're living in it over here. But it's like, to me, the challenge is like taking a deep breath and just trying to assimilate things and take it to like that third place that it's just like a respect for actuality, you know, as opposed to like letting your belief system sort of like dictate what information you'll accept and what you'll put blinders onto, you know. I think like there's a, you know, hopefully we're evolving and not devolving, you know, but it's, you know, sometimes I wonder, but
hard to get perspective. Well, that's what your tune, that's what that tune is about. Watch the cow.
Sorry, Bessie.
But that tune, is it called America?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's sort of what you're talking about in that tune, right?
Absolutely.
Like, yeah. It was just because is that your latest? Well, this is a perfect segue into this too, because you have a lot of new music that you're trying to figure out how to. Are you like, you had a triangle, and it looks like you're talking about releasing an album? Is that like?
Yeah, I do. I have so much music to release.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just trying to find my confidence in terms of like mixing and then mastering. Like I don't necessarily have all the gear or confidence that I just want it to sound as good as it can.
Sure.
It doesn't have to be the greatest sounding thing ever, but it'd be nice if it was.
If something sounds different, another go around doesn't necessarily mean that it's better. It's just different. I mean, with the stuff that you're doing, because I listened to several mixes of the same. They both were great. You know, like, so it's like, it's a matter of what you can live with, I guess. But I think the songs and how you're performing them stand for themselves. So regardless of what you do as far as tweaking where they are in the mix.
Right. Well, I mean, my first solo record that I put out a long time ago was the attitude was just, it's all about how the performance feels. I don't care if it sounds great, or it was just, I just want to capture this without like watching the clock or you know, or having somebody like look over my shoulder or tell me like I didn't enunciate enough, or you know, I just wanted to let me just do something pure. And that ended up really translating. Like a lot of people latched onto that over the stuff that, like, you know, we put way more work into, you know?
Yeah.
So, but I still like that missing piece is the, you know, making sure things are really as good as they can be sonically. You know, I do want to honor that, because as a listener, you know, I could listen to, when I hear a great recording, I really like that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just like, oh my God, damn.
But feel will carry something that might be, to me anyway, and you're probably the same way. Like if it feels good, it will carry something that might not sound as good sonically, but I think if it feels good, I'm much more drawn to it initially, and I mean the whole time.
Yeah.
If it feels good, I'm just super drawn in, and I couldn't care less at that point.
Right.
You know, and I find that if you spend a lot of time on the aesthetic part of it, you might kind of damage the feel part of it, which is not.
That's true.
I don't care how good if it sounds great and doesn't feel good, I don't really care.
Right.
You know, but personally. But then again, I don't spend a lot of time in the studio, so that might be my own shortcoming.
You know, it's tricky having all these personalities in here, you know, because I definitely have developed an engineer guy, a producer guy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then there's the artist. You know, they're all, like when you're sitting in your room by yourself and you're trying to see reality from all these different perspectives and even contradict yourself. Like try to just, you know, I want to see what it is that somebody else could see that naturally I couldn't, you know? Yeah. And so.
And the great thing as an artist is that you can get feedback now through, what's it called? Your subscription thing?
Oh, Patreon.
Patreon.
Yeah.
Like you can get immediate feedback. Like, cause I was reading through some of I even commented myself on a couple of those. Like, it's amazing that you can put something out and immediately know, because if you're chasing it, there's no way you're going to put out something that you can't really predict what people are going to go for.
No, I sometimes I have no idea.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what, people are going to hate this, but I'm going to just, let's just see what they say,
yeah.
You know?
The only time that I know for sure about something like that is I know people are going to hate Brad. And they do. Every time I introduce him, like, I don't know how, we'll talk about it when he leaves, but
it's a balance, you know, it's a balance.
I'm sure that you're no, but it's amazing though that like you can get, you just don't know, you have no idea what people are gonna say. You have no idea. I wish I did, because I know what I love. Some people will hear and go, nah. You know, like it moves me to my core. So I have no idea what's predictable or not. I mean, you're so prolific, you can put out things all the time, but you have an amazing amount of, I mean, maybe it's not, I don't know what constitutes a lot of subscribers on Patreon, but it looks like you have a lot of people who are into what you're doing, and that's incredible.
I feel very blessed to have the little foothold that I do, you know, and I can look up to the people who are doing much bigger things with it and hope to get there, you know, try to get there. But it can be tricky, you know, and I'm not one of these people who are great at self-promotion. It's not, it's not a skill that I
is it just reconciling that maybe you feel disingenuous about it, or is it?
I don't like ever feeling disingenuous.
Yeah, well, like you're not. I mean, like when I'm on the Patreon, it's like you are an open book on there. You are you're vulnerable. You put yourself out there, and I think that's what makes it so intriguing, and the music is wonderful. But the fact that you're honest about, you're like, you know, you write honestly, and I think people want that. When they're listening to someone, you're not trying to put on any airs. You're saying, you know, this was difficult, or this is just a different take on it. Who knows? And I think that's really compelling as someone who's, you know, there to consume what you're doing. I
mean, that's, you know, it seems like the most important thing to be is just to be kind of honest and straight up. But then I, you know, probably hurt myself in certain ways doing that, you know, over the course of my career, just really answering questions just completely honestly, and maybe saying some things I shouldn't have even, you know. All
right, so let's talk about the people you don't like.
Okay, well, here we go.
So I should go? I should leave?
Really, you think it could be a hindrance to not having what's the word, a public persona where you kind of are impenetrable, or like?
It never crossed my mind, you know. Yeah, until now that I'm older, and I know I was saying, oh, that's kind of what people are doing, you know. It's like you create the idea of someone, and it's like the person behind that could be someone different, you know.
So when you've met people that you've had on a certain pedestal or so, and you meet them and you realize they're nothing like what you thought they were, or are you talking about just artists in general?
I just think, you know, it's a marketing thing, really, you know, and also like, you know, my music isn't designed to be marketed. It's like, that's not the first impulse or I've never been really one-dimensional. That's another thing that ties back to 3. It's like I always think of my art as being more 3-dimensional because there's always kind of like 3 aspects to what's going on, to what I'm doing, you know what I mean? It's like, and I like the idea of listening to a record and it's like you think you have something pegged. Like nothing's going to surprise me now. I know the sound, but I like the idea that you get hit with something like, whoa, I was not expecting that, because it's that feeling. It goes back to that when I found that book. I love that feeling when you find something you weren't expecting. Yeah. You know what I mean? When you discover something, that feeling of discovering something is so integral to people appreciating art, you know?
Oh, it's
yeah.
It's true.
When it's like, hey, I discovered this. Wait, get out of here. I found this. It's not for you. You know, I mean, people, they want, you know, they can internalize it, and I guess I want to find more ways to do that, you know. And you know, one of the dreams I always had was I wanted to have a labyrinth, you know, if I ever had a lot of money, like a pretty sick like labyrinth where you go into this and you don't know what's in there and you don't know what you're going to find, but you might like come upon like an area where there's this beautiful piece of art and there's a listening station, and it's like you're the only one in there. You found it. You found the secret passage, and now you can listen to this. You know, and I just want it to like be interactive. And there was you guys ever hear the maze up in Arkville? You ever hear about that?
I don't think so. I mean, I've heard of mazes in the area, but not specifically.
There's a maze out there. It's really wild. I'm
just not sure. Right out on 20. Just keep going on 28.
Yeah,
right?
You keep going on 28.
Past Margaretville and
Arkville. I think it might be right before Margaretville.
Oh, I played out there once. I thought it was after Margaretville, but I played with Nina Sheldon. Right? Do you know her, the pianist? Great pianist and singer. Yeah. But I mean, I was like, where is Arkville? And when you get to Arkville, you're like, you feel like you're in another time and space.
Yeah.
Like
No, there's like a train and
gas is like 24% more because they got to get it out there.
Right.
Like it's really it's gorgeous country. But anyway, having a maze there sounds like a perfect place.
Yeah. No, when we were kids, like it was like this legend, and so we knew a couple of girls from Woodstock. Actually, Ruth Unger was one of them. If you know Ruth, Mike and Ruthie.
Sure.
Yeah. We used to hang out when we were kids.
Wow.
Because we both had we had musician parents, and we spent a couple summers just having fun. And
very cool.
They actually took me to the maze. They knew where it was, because you just drive up there and you pull over to the side of the road at some point, and you get out and you just you hop over the little guardrail and go down into the woods. You just kind of wander around till you find these train tracks, and you cross a little bridge and you take this little path, and then boom, there it is.
Wow.
It's a brick.
It's a public thing, or
it's not really. No, I think we probably could have gotten in trouble.
Okay.
But people went there, I mean, you got this. And the thing about the maze is you wander into the maze, and there's two sculptures in there. There is an angel, and then there's a minotaur. And so the legend was like, whatever you find in there, that's whether you're going to heaven or hell, basically.
Good God.
So it's like it's kind of heavy. We go in one at a time. We're like, we're gonna find out what happened.
Like separately, you.
Yeah. Just so.
So if someone was on the outside.
Yeah, I mean.
Like, how long would it take you to go in there and come back? Like.
An hour.
Okay.
It was made from brick walls. They're. You couldn't see over them. You could probably climb up on top of them if you really wanted to at the beginning, because it kind of slopes down when you go into it.
Yeah.
But we went in there and explored it, and I could hear the voices of my friends wandering around, and eventually I came upon it. I found the angel.
Nice.
And I was the only one there, and then I heard screams of horror. And I was like, Jesus, what's happening? I started running towards the screams, and my friends had all wound up at the Minotaur. And in the Minotaur's scrotum was a wasp nest. And so they were like, the wasps were like pouring out of the scrotum, and they're getting stung. And I was just like, wow, you did
find hell.
Wow. So, but I was always struck by that, man. I just love that feeling of like finding your own way inside of something.
Amazing.
And discovering these, these really cool sculptures. They were not like straight up. They were pretty wild sculptures, like the angel and the Minotaur. They were.
It's funny though, because nothing describes the music business better than a Minotaur's nutsack full of wasps.
Indeed.
That's very much has to be part of your experience.
Absolutely, man. I got stung. I got stung hard.
Yeah, well, we could just touching on. We could talk about a little bit more of, quote unquote, what your career has, like, you've done a lot of road stuff, right? You've done, we've talked about some of the tours you've done, but maybe we could talk about that a little bit if you were interested in that at all. I don't know if that's where you were going with this stuff, talking about if you were going to get to.
Well, speaking of Minotaur's nutsacks, no, I was thinking before, I mean, you've obviously gotten to work so closely with so many legendary acts. I mean, Dream Theater, Opeth, members of Parliament, Funkadelic. I mean, you're working like up close with all these legendary acts in different capacities, but who like getting to see their work up close had the biggest effect on how you approach your own work?
I have to think about that one, probably. I mean, everyone influences you. Every tour.
Heavy hitters. I mean, I'm sure everything's revolutionary.
I mean, it's like you just drink it in, and just watch what's happening, and seeing how George Clinton works. He gets out there on a stage, and how he runs his band, and it's like, there's like 36 dudes in the band. I mean, but he gets out there, and then he could just kind of like starts conducting. You know what I mean? You know what? I remember being out there on stage with him and just thinking like, please don't pick me, please don't pick me, please, because he comes up to you and then he starts like And you're supposed to be like, oh, how's he doing this to me?
That sounds like my dream to have that happen.
When you're first out there, you're a little nervous, but I got to go to Europe with P-Funk as part of the opening band, which had a bunch of the members of the band in the opening band.
Right.
The band was called Drugs.
Yeah.
And that was probably my first real touring experience. I don't know. I was 20 years old, and I got on the bus with these guys. And it's like I didn't know, and it's like they were the nicest dudes in the world. They were so good to me. They treated me so well. Made me feel really comfortable. I'll never forget when we hit Amsterdam, and they took me aside, and they're like, "Now that feeling, you get, when it's Christmas time, that feeling. Well, that's what it's like for us when we get to Amsterdam." And they took me to the red light district, and I'm just like, why should these guys lose their minds? And he's like, they're just like, run into him, high-fiving, like, where you at? I'm on number 4. Like, I was just like, wow, this. I mean, it was mind-blowing back then. It was like, things were not as progressive here in the U.S. at the time. And I don't know, are they less progressive now?
Yeah, I don't think we're there yet. Yeah.
Well, you can smoke pot anyway.
That's true.
But yeah, it was pretty wild. Just checking out that.
That was your first tour?
That was I guess it was my first. Now that I think about it, my first real tour. And what an experience, And I started writing. Just immediately inspired. Yeah. And it was, it was interesting to me that. At the time, I know George is straight up sober now, but back then, if you offered him pot, he'd be like, "Hell no, I don't." Everybody else in the band smoked pot, but George was like, "That shit's crazy." But he would eat mushrooms for breakfast. Oh. So,
yeah.
Now you have so much cred in the prog community, and obviously you're you've carved out your own niche with a rock sound, but you can play so many other genres so well. Is that rock and prog thing more of a at the core of what you go for, or is it literally just all directions? And then did playing with the P-Funk guys, did that add a new type of funk to what you were doing? Did that change the way you approached playing?
It definitely inspired me. I started writing some funky riffs, but I always had the soul background because I grew my parents were spinning all the Stevie Wonder stuff. Yeah. And that's what brought me to these guys when they heard me sing. They're like, "Oh, he's got a little bit of that flavor in there." And I met Michael Clip Payne. Had come to Woodstock. We ended up working together. I sang on a track for an artist called Alex Gopher, and I guess the song did pretty good in Europe, and that's what kind of opened the door for me. And Clip and I, we still work together to this day. We do stuff, and so he's definitely working with him, seeing how he would produce vocals, and just getting to be around these guys, man. It's like the soul, the way it just pours out of them. It's like I just try to they're not trying, they just are, you know what I mean? It's like it's hard to explain. Getting to be around Gary Scheider, God, that guy, he was awesome, man. He was really, really good to me, and we would hang out. He'd always want to be next to me on stage, so that was really cool, man. And that was sad when he passed away, but I'll never forget the time I had with him. But I don't know if anybody's had quite as diverse an experience as I have, because there I am now. Next, I'm out with Swedish death metal bands, and and it's like when you tour with Opeth. I love Opeth. Those guys when they do it, it's like it's so different, but I felt that same. They did it soulfully, you know, and there were a lot of like these like younger bands that it just didn't hit you in the same way, you know. But Opeth was awesome, and you know, really enjoyed the tours we got to do together.
Yeah. I didn't even realize that you had toured with Opeth. I didn't know what Opeth was until about, I don't know, a few years ago.
I only know through Paul Rietmeyer, shout out.
Yeah, I think that's where I started, because he was working on some of that stuff, and he had brought some of it into one of those lessons, and I was like, oh my God, these guys are amazing, but I had never checked them out.
Well, that's just bread and butter, Dream Theater and all that. So when I was like, the more research I did, I'd be like, Paul's head would explode.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was, we did, in 2008 we did the Progressive Nation tour.
Okay.
And that was like kind of the flagship run. That was back when Mike Portnoy was playing drums for Dream Theater, and it was Mike who got us on the bill. He had discovered our band, and he
did this as three, is what you said?
As three.
Okay.
Yeah. He had, you know, discovered what we were doing. He was into it, and you know, and it was interesting because they looked at us like, oh, these guys are the funky prog band. You know what I mean? Because it's like we were not ice cold. We were, you know, things were definitely like a little fiery and different every night, and you know, we're out there just doing our best to make a great impression on the audience. And
all I heard for the stories from that tour were some of the practical jokes you were telling me about.
Oh yeah, yes.
I don't remember when that was. We were playing somewhere and out in the parking lot. Oh, was that it? I think that was.
There were some good ones. Yeah. I guess it's a thing, you know, where you have to haze the opening band. You know, really, it's like, okay, this is probably the biggest tour they've done. You know what I mean? It's like some of these shows are like 3,500 people. You know, some big stuff. And I guess not. You know, I mean, they make it hard on you. You know, I'm not gonna. You know, and this is not even the funny stuff. Like that, you know, you got the sound company. These guys are coming up to you saying like, "Hey, if you want things to run smoothly, you know, you got to grease the wheels, boy."
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, I'm broke. We're only getting paid $250 for this gig, and you know, I'm like, I'm sorry. You know, a lot of bands that are out there, they have financial backing, and they have rich families, and you know, we didn't have that, so we couldn't pay these guys. So they were
already getting paid though as
oh yeah, no,
I've never heard of that. That's crazy.
They're getting paid, but they want, you know, if you want things to run smoothly for your band, you better grease the wheels. And sure enough, when we didn't grease those wheels, boy, there were squeals.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Squeaky wheels. And our sound guy was like, no. So he knew who to call. He called Tony Levin. He said, Tony, these guys are, they're not treating us good out here. And Tony called. He called Dream Theater. And he told them what was going on. And everything was smooth after that.
Were they still employed?
They were still employed.
Wow.
And they were like, is there anything I can get for you, Mr. Eppard? So, you know. In the progressive world, Tony Levin, he's like, he's kind of like the
entire world.
He makes a call. I mean, thank you, Tony. Tony did us a solid there. But yeah, when the tour came to wrapping up, that was when you know, the Gremlins came out, and Mike Portnoy dressed himself up in some kind of weird outfit, and he decided to have some fun with all the bands. But he got us. He printed out a bunch of pornography. Like off a shitty printer, and he taped it all over the stage, like on all our wedges. And then
not some Channel Z stuff. This is something.
No, he's definitely.
Three boobs.
Way more than three boobs. Or it was more like, I think that's a boob. And then what they did was they took Scotch tape to the keyboards and taped certain keys together. So no matter what you do, you're hitting fucked up notes. You go to play. It's like, so, and you can't see on us. You know, the stage is dark. You're not going to be able to find all the Scotch tape. They covered the drums in baby powder, like carefully, so that you didn't necessarily notice until you went boom, and then it was a cloud of. So we're all coughing, choking. There's pornography everywhere, I mean, and we're just like, at first you're kind of mad, you know what I mean? Like, God damn, I'm trying to like, and then you're like, all right, you just gotta go with it and laugh it off. And that's really, I think the test is like, who can handle that?
Yeah.
And if you can't handle that, then you can't handle the music business. And so get out.
Yeah, I guess there's far worse things than baby powder.
But when you try doing stuff like that to like, one of the original Swedish death metal bands, that shit doesn't go unanswered. Okay. It doesn't, I would never do that to Opeth. Okay.
Yeah, those guys seem
okay. So
scary.
They did some shit they closed the curtain on Opeth. The curtain came down while they were playing.
Oh my goodness.
And that curtain's heavy. If that shit came down on your head, it could really hurt you.
Wow.
But they closed it on them while they were playing. They didn't like that. So
They didn't like that.
No, they didn't like that. They immediately went straight to Walmart after the gig, after their set. Before Dream Theater came on, they made a run to Walmart and they bought these like golf setups, like with like it was like a like a kiddie golfing setup. It wasn't an actual real golf ball, but it was like a
like wiffle balls for golf.
Kind of like a golf wiffle ball setup.
Okay.
And so they waited for Dream Theater to go on, and once they were in their set, they set it up side stage. And they just started taking turns. And I will never forget the look on James Hetfield's face when the ball just plunked right off his forehead. And I saw his eyebrows do this thing like he could not believe that had just happened to him. And it was like, he's like, he has nothing to do with this bullshit. Like, why is he getting pelted in the head with, but we were side stage watching Opeth, and we got a few turns into.
Why were they teeing off, no pun intended, on Hetfield though? What, like, it was, or was it, no,
just a crossfire.
Just a crossfire.
Yeah. It was just whatever you could do to their band to embarrass them.
Wow.
But they really got Portnoy, the best, because he had one of those vocal mics that when it was time for him to swing, there was some kind of thing he hit and it would swing around like that right into his face and he'd start singing.
Yeah.
Well, they rigged it up. They put a pie on it so that when he hit it, it came around and pied him right in the face. And that was, Opeth is brilliant. It was just incredible that they could do that, and we all felt pretty good after it. I'm not sure how the guys in Dream Theater felt after that. I think
Portnoy seems like he got the worst of it, or
well, he's not in the band anymore. I think I don't know. I'm not going to say too much about that, but
when you're expecting to sing a note and get pied,
it's pretty extreme.
That's pretty badass. That's a really smart joke. The fact that
I don't know how they did it, man. But
because if it was anything else, you could have hurt somebody. Like a pie's not gonna. You take a little bit of a baked apple to the eyeball. You'll be
it was
all
like
right.
a crust filled with whipped cream. That's all it was.
So,
you know what I mean?
So like all of a sudden it turned Benny Hill.
Yeah. That was classic. I've never seen anything else like that on the road. So.
And the audience is just seeing wiffle golf balls come flying across the stage. Like,
I don't know. I wonder what the audience is thinking. Like,
there was there had to be big screen. Like, did 3,500 people see a pie go to the face of?
Oh yeah, they saw that. They definitely. He's all lit up. The amazing thing about that scene, he's Mike Portnoy had just himself. He has 40 inputs.
Oh my God!
Wow.
He's got he's got a full circular drum kit. My band got 12 inputs.
All in.
The whole band. That's what we got.
12.
12 inputs, multiple of 3. So I was like, okay, it's cool.
Yeah. So you're playing. Are you playing? You are playing acoustic guitar on that tour though, and singing. Is that right? Or no, but you just sing?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I was playing acoustic and electric and running, Dude, we made the most of
those
12 inputs. Oh my god! Yeah, we had to submix some things, and we did have Robert Fraza was our sound guy. So
no kidding.
Yeah, he was the one that called Tony Levin.
Oh, that makes perfect sense.
Because he's he does Tony's sound.
Robert Fraza, he did some sound. He does every now and again. He will do sound for the Reeling Group.
Oh, cool.
I mean, but he's like a legendary sound. He lives in Woodstock.
Yep. Yeah.
He has a van.
Oh.
Because I think, aren't we taking that van down there?
Oh, we might be taking his van, yeah. Probably.
Down to Pittsburgh, right? Or wherever it is
we should probably be taking him with the van, but...
yes.
He would be... he's good. He's good on the road. We used to call him the Bear. He came out, toured with us multiple times. Good man.
Well, the fact that he knew who to call is... that's enough.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's pretty
Everything
incredible.
else is gravy. Yeah, hell yeah.
All of a sudden, it was like, oh, shit, you don't fuck with 3. I was like, okay.
But it still didn't give you courage enough to pie any of the members of
No, I wasn't pieing anybody, but I'll watch the...
You should have called Tony and have him come and throw
when
a
you're
pie
main
in
support, you can, that's when you can pie people. But
That's great, man. That's amazing. When you were telling me, the only story I knew from that was the pie one, which I just thought was hilarious. But I didn't know the other stuff you were talking. It's just great to know to catch some of the behind the scenes stuff. The fact that there's a tour going on and they get done and they're probably drenched in sweat and they're like, let's go to Walmart.
We got to fit. There's something there we can use. I'm sure of it.
I mean, that's you would think you'd want to chill, have a beer, whatever, hang out, sign merch, whatever it is. No, they're like, get the car. we're going to Walmart. It could have been fishing lures. It could have been so dangerous.
Yeah.
The fact that they got wiffle golf balls is hilarious.
They needed the right thing.
Yeah,
and,
that says something about they're industrious. No one got hurt, and it still managed to have a really hilarious reaction to having a curtain come down on you in the middle of your set. Very funny. Let me. Go ahead.
I guess this kind of goes with the whole spirit of that sort of spontaneity that goes into your music, but as more of another element of I guess the mindset you approach music with. I want to know just how punk rock you consider yourself. I believe you said in an interview you have an uncle on the West Coast who's deep into punk over there. Is that right?
Oh yeah. We cover like a lot of genres in my family.
I know you've written so many songs. I know you'll touch upon elements of punk, and we'll I'm sure you're very familiar. But what role does punk as a concept and genre play for you?
Well, my uncle, who is known as John the Baker, he has worked at Alternative Tentacles with.
Oh, really? That sounds so familiar, John the Baker. I don't know from where, but I used to be way in Dead Kennedys, and I used to look through Alternative Tentacles website when I was in high school.
Yeah, well, he's got a few bands, Instant Asshole.
Okay, yeah.
Slimy Penis Breath. All classics, no one could forget, his songs if you've heard them. Fist Fuck the Pope, that's the classic.
Wait, what was the first one? I'm confusing. Slimy Asshole, that's not what it was. What was the
No, but that's probably his next band. Slimy Penis Breath.
Slimy. And they opened up for what asshole?
Sorry. I'm not sure who they opened up for, but they were punk band in
That's
the area.
amazing. Those are great titles.
He did end up going to the West Coast and running like an underground venue there called Burnt Ramen, which was pretty well respected in the punk scene. It was off the grid, but they still had electricity, and we got to go and swing by in there and play there.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we did. And it's a funny thing. It's like we were actually respected by the punks on the scene there. Whereas the other band that was touring with us, who were kind of screamo, and kind of like at the time, I just remember like, it's just, it felt like there's like this handbook of like your stage moves and like, this is what you do. This is how you spin your microphone, and then you get on the monitor and you do that thing. And it's just like, so I don't know. It just was a turnoff. Like, I just want to see somebody go out there and do something and just be themselves. And I felt like it was very conformist.
Well, like you were saying before, like spinning your guitar by the strings or something like that already like solo acoustic already sounds more punk rock than just screaming and wearing studs and like distortion.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, my attitude is always, I always feel like inside I am a punk rocker because I'm always rebelling against the status quo or how I'm supposed to be. And it's almost like rebelling against the idea that I can't write complex music or break down those barriers. Like that's not, you know, I do what I want. Yeah. I've always done what I want. And to me that there is a punk aspect to that.
Well, that's the most punk rock thing. I mean, punk is avant-garde. It's
right
to begin with, as it's, I mean, it's just the problem is I feel like so many punk bands have become derivative and, you know, like are doing a lot of what people's favorite punk bands were doing that originally set that tone. You know, I love like Black Flag and Dead Kennedys, but obviously there's so many people that are kind of copying a lot of those idioms. But then there's even punk bands that are so far removed from that are like my favorites. My favorite punk band of all time is the Minutemen, and they don't even really sound.
Dude, I love the Minutemen. The Minutemen are a huge influence on me and on 3, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, I was just listening to Double Nickels on the Dime.
One of the greatest albums.
I mean, it's so good. It's just.
I've told you to listen to it, Matt.
So
I haven't because much like Joey, you're not going to tell me what to do.
He's too so punk to even listen to it. Man.
So punk rock.
But you know, I was lucky. My dad had a friend who was like a music connoisseur, and I think he needed some money one day, and he sold my dad a suitcase filled with cassette tapes. I mean, there must have been, you know, 200 cassette tapes in this suitcase, and my dad just put it in the basement, you know. And Josh and I, my brother Josh, we found it. We started going through it. You know, like, what is this, man? I don't know. Put it on. Minutemen. We're like, oh shit! Like, I love this shit. Just like, I mean, that record is in my bones, man. Like, and that kind of opened things up for me too. Just like the way they, you know, they're hitting stuff, and it's just funny that comes up because I think it was just a couple months ago. I was like, oh man, I'm putting on some Minutemen, you know.
Yeah, I throw them on, you know, every now and then too. I mean,
yeah.
That was like Mike Watt was like my first big bass influence, and I feel like that did start. You know, I used to be like a punk and like underground ska kind of snob, and I was like not into a lot of stuff. And then I guess I started getting into like a little bit of jazz through my brother, but I feel like it was like the Minutemen opened me up a little bit, and then Frank Zappa is what like really just made me love everything, and like not be so concerned about like, oh, is this popular? Is this
right?
Like, is this sellout music?
It's great that music can do that. You know what I mean? When you find when you discover it, when you find it, and it kind of opens your head up, and you know. And I'd like to think maybe I've been able to do that for a few people too, because we were always, you know, sticking out like a sore thumb on any bill we played on. Because the funny thing about the music we create, it's like we wind up in all these. Or I find myself in all these different situations, you know, and it's just couldn't be more night and day, you know what I mean? It's like I'm doing something with the Bad Brains, and then, you know, then I'm on tour with Heart.
To ask you about that too.
You know what I mean? Like, but you know, there is a thread that runs through all of that, and you know, man, the Minutemen, hugely influential for sure.
Oh my God,
I mean, and I don't know where I'd be without that stuff. But there was also, you know, there's the local music scene too. That there was a band called Peace Bomb back in the day in the 90s around here.
I don't know that band either.
Peace Bomb was awesome. They weren't like anybody else. Like they just had their own sound, and the rhythm section was insane. I mean, the bass and drums were just super creative. It was almost like. I mean, it wasn't really a lot of like metal so much on our scene happening, but it was like almost having like a funkier metal rhythm section with like lots of double kick, but it was like the bass is really like right with the double kick, like slapping and popping, but it sounded good. It wasn't annoying. You know what I mean? It was like, it was really tight, and a lot of finger stuff too. And the songs were just like zany, like wild progressive shit. And you know, when I saw that band play, my brother and I saw them, we were just like, what? It just blew our minds. You know what I mean? Like nobody.
They were right in Woodstock.
But they were based out of Kingston.
Wow.
They had they were based. They were in Chris Gagne's loft for a while above Ulster Lighting on Broadway.
Wow, yeah. I know exactly where that is.
We played a legendary show there when we were in high school. We got to open up for Peace Bomb.
Really?
And we called it the Jello Jam. And the thing was, like, everyone coming to the show bring a bucket full of Jello. And we filled a pool inside with Jello, and we had Jello wrestling during the music, which I thought was a great idea at the time. I was like, oh, it's going to be awesome. And then my girlfriend pushed me into the Jello, and I went in head first. I was covered in Jello.
And so you had to call Tony Levin.
I called Tony. There was nothing he could do. He's got no pull when it comes to Jello. But all hell broke loose. People went completely insane, and people started just taking handfuls of Jello and throwing it.
Wow, it sounds like the Woodstock of that era too.
It was. It was like this little
except they were using
200 people in a loft on Broadway that just were put into a blender, basically. Wow. And there was Jello on the ceiling, and these were high ceilings. So I spent the next week cleaning and repainting.
Really?
Yes,
wow.
It was pretty bad, but the show was good. People had a good time, and it's a fun thing to laugh about now. My underpants actually, which were stained pink and solidified to a fully hardened material, hung on the wall there for a long time.
Wow.
And the wildest thing was they had a big shower, and like the entire audience basically
showered off that?
Showered because, I mean, their clothes were covered in Jello.
Wow.
So it's like people just getting in the shower. It was just better to be soaking wet and covered in sticky Jello. So
wow. It's just like a combination of Woodstock and the movie the Back to School, where they filled the little pool with lube and then wrestled in it.
Old school.
Old school.
Yeah.
Old school. Not Back to School. That's Rodney Dangerfield. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I'm old. And I just watched it fairly recently.
Yeah, me too, actually.
Yeah, that's where Blue.
Oh, you're my boy, Blue.
That's where, spoiler alert, Blue.
No, don't spoil. No, they could tell as soon as they saw him. Wow, so many of these stories you have, they just sound like names of like songs that you would write, like Jello on the Ceiling.
Yeah, God, there's still lots to mine from. That's a good point.
Quick aside, while we're so close to talking about punk, my second favorite punk band was the Dead Milkmen. I don't know if you've ever gotten to them. Another way I feel like punk was. They're not just trying to sound like a punk band. There's like elements of country and blues and all these other things in there. And I feel like that's so cool that you touch on so many different things with your compositions. I love bands that aren't afraid to do that.
Yeah, and that definitely comes from that punk, sort of energy. Like, I'm going to do what I want, especially if you tell me I can't do that. Yeah. And say like, no, that's not what an artist is supposed to be. You're supposed to be one-dimensional, easily marketed. And it's like, yeah, I've rebelled against that my whole life, because that's not who I am, and I'm just trying to be honest about who I am, and who I am changes every day. Someday, like, I mentioned I was going through a dark time. I started writing country songs, man.
Ooh.
And it's like I'm not sure, how I feel about that. I'm like, do I even like this song? I don't know if I do.
I'd like to hear. Is any of that on your Patreon?
Well. Yeah, there is one tune. Okay. I mean, okay, it's to call it a country song.
Does it come out country or no?
The chorus is kind of country-ish. Okay. You know what I mean? But the other parts are like very proggy. I don't know what to really call it.
So it was like a pickup truck, but it had spinners on it.
It was like a flying pickup truck that could open portals into other dimensions.
Nice. It was a pickup truck, but it had 7 wheels.
Nice. Yeah. 3 wheels.
9 wheels.
Yeah, 9. Sorry. Yeah, come on. Have you learned nothing?
What's your favorite time signature?
Well, I do find myself writing in 6/4 a lot. That's, of
course.
That seems to be one of my wheelhouses.
That's all I know, really. But yeah, as far as the composers go and like branching out stylistically, like not being afraid to do that as a group, like I was saying before, Frank Zappa was a big influence on me, as he wasn't afraid to do that. And I feel like if you commit to that so hard, like especially someone like Zappa, I feel like eventually you reach a point where you've almost created like a genre of your own. Like in so much of Zappa's music, different songs, there's through lines and random references that like tie it all together. Is there any way you try to like tie your body of work together, or does it feel very one-off and almost like
I definitely weave a thread through everything, you know what I mean? And I don't know
the number 3.
Yeah, but also like I love recycling lines that have appeared in other songs. Sometimes they feel right, you know, with slight variations in other progressions. And I like to have themes that kind of run through, and those are the themes that swim around in my mind. And you know, so that's there. You know, it's all me. You know what I mean? Like what it comes down to. You know, I'm still telling the story. I'm still at the forefront, even if it's, you know, done in a different way or in a different style, or you know, I'm getting into my soulful side, or I'm doing more of a, you know, I mean, I couldn't, you know, I just released 2 completely different songs on my Patreon. Like they're so different, you know. I put out In America, but then, you know, a couple weeks ago, I got super 80s inspired. I just got into like the 80s vibe, and I didn't play any guitar. I just played all keyboards, and I love what I came up with. It's like super melodic.
What song is that?
It's called Games of Solitaire.
Yeah, that's a really different. There's some eerie keyboard sounding, whereas the In America one sounds more like. Well, they're just completely. They're
so
divergent.
Totally different.
Yeah.
Just different animals, but both things that I was feeling in the moment. You know what I mean? And that's just me. That's what happens, and it's a blessing and a curse. You know? Yeah.
Well, the curse, being honest about what you're doing and putting out whatever comes to mind, and can't
I mean, there are people who would tell me that I'm, you know, that's a sign of immaturity, maybe, that I do what I want, or I make the music I want, and I'm not creating like a product that's, you know, like I said, one-dimensional. That one-dimensional is easy to market. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's the age-old, like, can you commodify your art? Can you live with creating something that can be sold? And there's a lot of people who can't live with that.
No, that's true.
It sounds like you're able to do it. Through Patreon, you're able to at least, you know, you're not trying to. You're not trying to make $1 billion, but that's never. But when you listen to your music, it doesn't ever sound like you're doing this because you're trying to turn a profit. It sounds like what comes out of your creative flow, and then leave the chips fall where they may, and then on to the next one. Right.
I guess, you know, most of my profits are psychological, and you know, I'd rather have my kids see a happy, healthy person than somebody who's frustrated and heartbroken and angry. you know, let's just enjoy your life as much as you can. And
I think Pacino said that in The Scent of a Woman. He said there is no prosthetic for the broken heart. You know, there is just not to be hokey, but living that way, it's hard to try to make a living from what you're doing and making that choice. Can you live with this? And it sounds like you can. And to bring it full circle where we started, just before we hit record, we were talking about Chappelle, and there's a quote that opens up at the Ellington School where he talks about art should be dangerous. When it ceases to be dangerous, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it's like doing what you want is what he was justifying. It's a hard thing, and not everybody can do it. Most people can't. You know, you're always chasing, if you're chasing how can I make a living at this, it's very, very difficult to make decisions based on artistic integrity.
True. Yeah. And it's kind of just gross. It's like you can smell it a mile away, and like, ew, like, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, it's gross to you. Some people court that.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
I know.
Really. You know, so the fact that you found a place as prolific as you are in creating so many different types of songs, that you found a place where you can get it all out and still be happy and satisfied. That's a remarkable place to be in life. to me, as an outsider, that seems incredible that you can do that.
I try to be thankful, try to be thankful for, what I've got, but I do want to do more. I do want to grow the music and get more of it out to the public. That's the hurdle I have in front of me right now, is how do I do that, in the, honoring what the work I put into this point. It's like jumping off a ledge. I have friends who put music out and the music is really good, but then I just watch them like kind of throw it off a cliff. And it's like, why aren't more people like buying this or listening to it? And it's like,
because there aren't a lot of people who buy music anymore.
Right.
It's a hard thing.
It's very tricky. So I want to find the right path forward for what I'm doing, and I'm grateful that I have the Patreon community to help me get there.
And how much does it cost per month to join your Patreon?
Well, there's all sorts of different tiers. So of course,
the Freedom Fighter tier,
the basic, that's $3.33. Of course,
there it is.
The next level is $9.99. That's the next level up.
How did I not catch that? I went out. I was checking the tiers. I didn't even think of that. Oh, is it really for the shout out and production credit? Is it really $333? Is it?
A couple months ago, I got a message from Patreon. I have I just created a high tier because who knows? So there's somebody out there, you never know.
Yeah.
A year and a half into having this Patreon, I get a ding. Somebody joined I call it the inner triangle. $333.33 a month. I never thought anybody would sign up for that. It's like, I don't even know what exactly I'm going to do for you.
Well, I think it says production credit, right?
You get an executive producer credit. You get, and then it's basically like, we're on the level now. So somebody signed up for that for me, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Her name is Lauren Futrall. She's really cool.
Shout out, Lauren.
Obviously.
Yeah. She's awesome.
Yeah, she is. She blew my mind. And the first thing I did was like, you get the master key. Here is a link to everything that I'm writing and working on. Wow. You can listen to it. You can tell me anything you want to, you can influence the direction of what I'm doing. You are in my inner triangle. You care that much that you're, you know what I mean? You are really important to me. And obviously, she really believes in what I do. So, that was a huge boost, that's, because I know people who could afford to do that easily that won't do that. You know what I mean? And I know, I know.
Brad, you son of a bitch.
But yeah, that was pretty wild. And
That's
then
amazing.
I'm kind of brainstorming now, like I'm going to message her soon actually, and just.
Now, will it be scary if you get a second person? Because then you'll be making 666.
That is multiple of 3. So
you still love 666?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You're sketching me out now, man.
It's 369, man. Just Tesla knew it was up.
Yeah. Well, we got to let you go, I think. Yep, we're right on. That work for you?
Oh yeah. I'm good.
Was there anything else that you wanted to?
I don't know. I guess just I figured I'd bring up that number 3 example as a way to end. I'm also curious, is your third, when you dropped your third album, was that like a big moment for you, or you can do a third take on a song? Is that like you get like an extra bump going into something like that of like confidence?
That's a good question. I don't know. Nothing really comes to mind for that, but I'm sure there's a. Let's see, what is my third album? Was it Paint by Number?
I'm starting to question how serious you are about the number 3. I thought this would be all on your mind. We'll come back to the show two more times.
The third record was the one that got us on the road and turned us into a national act. I made it. It was the record that I said, I'm done with this, like, spending all this money I don't have in the studio. I'm going to just buy some shit and I'm going to just do it myself. And I had enough experience in the studio that I could kind of do it, and I taught myself. I actually had Robert Fraza to help me, get the software. He got me on Logic. This is back in 2003.
Oh, that was back when Logic was super expensive too, right?
Well, yeah, more expensive than it is now. It was $600.
Right. I thought it was more
software.
Than that. Okay.
Yeah, but the reason you went Logic because you didn't need as much outboard. You didn't have to buy the special Pro Tools rig.
Yeah, of course.
Shout
out to Logic.
I had Logic back in the day.
Yeah.
And I started making the album Wake Pig, and that wound up finding its way to the ears of Brian Slagle, who owns Metal Blade Records, and he was the guy who first put out anything by Metallica.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, the very first metal compilation album had Metallica on it, and he put that out, and he's been part of the scene. Anyway, he said he put our record on, and he said within 30 seconds he was like, I'm signing these guys. And before we knew it, we were all hanging out, and they loved the band. We did a deal, and then the industry really started to tank. It just the budgets just dried up, man. I mean, I had a record budget, my first record deal. I started young. By the time I was 17 years old, Michael Lang was my manager, and we were playing the main stage at Woodstock '94.
Oh wow!
So it was like, I started at 15. Basically, I think that was the first time I played out. We were literally a garage band. We were playing in the garage, and I just remember everyone kind of being finishing a song, and be like, "Oh, we're pretty good." They're like, "We're gonna make it," And I was like, "Guys, you got to be realistic about this kind of thing. Yeah. It's going to be at least 2 weeks before we make it." And that was me trying to be realistic.
Not 3 weeks.
2 years later, I was kind of pissed that it had taken so long. But things were falling into place. We had the management. We were playing the main stage. And in the blink of an eye, we were backstage with the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and Trent Reznor's yelling at my brother, and Sheryl Crow's posing for pictures for us. And I was like, okay, yeah, I felt like that's where we were supposed to be. But for whatever reason, it was just, there was always some reason why it didn't quite work out, and the sound was really messed up for that show. We were on a rotating stage, circular stage that's split in half. So on one side there's a band setting up while there's a band.
Oh, gotcha.
So we're getting ready to go. The stage starts turning. You start playing as the stage is turning, right? So you're coming around, and then you see it we were playing on Friday, so at the time it was about 60,000 people in front of the stage, and we're just like, holy shit. Josh had been throwing up.
From nerves?
From nerves.
Wow.
We had to drag him out of the porta potty. It's kind of terrifying. You never, we're children. My brother was 14 years old. Oh my God. And here we are, we're getting a shot on the main stage.
Holy cow.
And
1994? Is that what
94.
You said? Wow.
Yeah. And then boom, there we are. We're doing our thing. We're playing these weird songs we wrote in the basement, to all these people. That's and amazing. It's how do we get here? And then I hear all right, give me some kick. Boo, boo, boo. It's not my drummer. It's the drummer it's the drummer on the other side of the stage sound checking. And it's things are cross patched. And so we're trying to get through our set while the sound is just so, there's one monitor that's just going through the whole thing, and I'm just this can't be happening. I'm literally on stage, this can't be happening right now. But it's you just got to power through it, man.
Yeah.
Whatever happens. So it didn't turn out to be the grandiose break the band moment that we all had dreamt it was going to be. I mean, originally Michael Lang wanted us to play it 8 p.m. on Friday night, but we ended up going on at noon on Friday, and it was
That's the one where everybody was. My wife was working one of the concession stands during
Yeah,
that.
probably.
And got stranded there. And that's when everybody was hopping also as well. There was like tens of thousands of people.
Oh yeah, the fence came down.
Like there was hundreds of thousands of people that weren't even ticketed. Like there was not enough water. There was not enough
not
Johns.
enough water,
Yeah.
not enough food. But
Aerosmith was there too.
We
right?
had foreseen this,
Really?
actually, the food shortage, the water, and I said, guys, let's do something about it, right? But unfortunately, I went on it Friday at noon before these were problems at all. So we're like trying to hand out food to the crowd.
Yeah.
We got donations from some local bakeries, like bread that was like up that day or whatever, and like all sorts of food. And we had some water, so we started tossing them out to the crowd. We basically started a massive food fight. So I had like good intentions of like I'm gonna help the people,
Yeah.
No, we started a food fight.
Wow.
At least you weren't throwing Jello at them.
That's true, but I'd rather get hit by Jello than a bottle of water. But anyway, so sometimes things don't work out the way you imagine them in your head, and it was a couple years after that we signed our first real major label deal. We signed to Universal Records, and we got to make a record. And then when we were nearing completion on the record, they fired our A&R guy, who was actually Heavy D. If you guys know Heavy D,
Sure,
the rapper Heavy
Yeah,
D.
yeah.
There's another Heavy D that I don't know much about him. But yeah, Heavy D disappeared. So we're like, have you heard from Heavy? No. He did say something cryptic. He said, no matter what happens, keep doing it. You got something special. Don't give it up no matter what happens. But there was a huge merger, and they merged with Polygram. Universal and Polygram like merged together, and then they just fired everyone and dropped all the artists that didn't sell 100,000 records that year.
Oh.
And we hadn't even finished our first record, so we were just kind of caught in this no man's land.
That's
and then
awful.
suddenly, literally everyone who even knew who we were was fired, except for Doug Morris, who was literally the guy at the top of it all.
Wow.
But for some reason, like, I'll never understand this. I was like, well, why can't we reach out to Doug? But like our lawyer was like, oh no, you don't do that. You don't reach out to Doug. I was like,
Tony
I don't
Levin
know.
called him.
I shook Doug's hand. Doug was into it. Like I would reach out to Doug, but we never did, and we got lost in the shuffle there. We had to let them know that we still had a contract with them, and that they had
Hence
to.
you had a lawyer.
There was
Yeah.
there was a buyout, and then that was that, and then that record sat on the shelf, and I was like, let's put this out, man. We gotta, it's driving me crazy. That was Paint by Number. It was our first record.
So they own that, or no? You were able to get it back.
No, we owned it.
Oh, okay.
I mean, yeah, there was like a buyout or something.
Okay.
So we never got the full record budget. And then my next record budget was 10% of what that budget was.
Really?
That's how much the whole scene changed. It went, you used to get a nice budget, man. I mean, here we were, who were we? We got $250,000 to make a record,
God.
and then it was 25,000. And, I did everything I could to make the best record I could for a limited budget, and I had to use that for pre-production and rehearsing too. So,
Right.
Yeah.
what you got to do.
That's so cool. I'm glad I asked. about 3.
Yeah.
It's been a long journey.
You got anything else, man?
I had some other questions, but I think we kind of inadvertently asked them. But just in closing, when going through all the stuff that you have on your Patreon, I've been playing with you for, let's say, the last 6 years, I guess, and hearing you do the Steely Dan catalog, and then to hear, I didn't realize how deep. I don't even think I have to ask you this, but I didn't realize how deep your Stevie Wonder influence was.
Oh yeah, it's deep.
Holy shit. It's
Yeah.
rare that you hear I don't know how much you've gone through the stuff on Patreon or on YouTube or whatever it was, but I'm listening to you sing and I'm like, I don't hear you. It's amazing how you in the Steely Dan thing that we do, you steer what you're doing through that lens, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know how else to say it, but
the funny thing about Steely Dan is that it's hard to steer it any other way. It doesn't, there's a lot of other music where you can you could probably make it a little bit more, the things you can lean on or moves you can make, you can't necessarily make over their music. It's a little bit more orchestrated.
It's a self-contained genre almost.
Yeah, like, it's just, I just respect what they're doing so much that I don't, I'll take something when I can get it. But it's not, it doesn't need to, if it's not making it better.
What there aren't a lot of are those Stevie Wonder-esque runs.
Right.
And when I was listening to your other stuff, I was like, holy cow. Like, that's just a side of you that I haven't really spent time with, where I hear you play every night and hear you sing all these songs. When I heard that, when I started listening to your other stuff, I was completely blown away about, and I never talked to you about Stevie before or any of those other influences you might have. But the Stevie thing seems deep. Like, I just didn't, that's a part of you that we never really kind of discussed. And we don't really have to, I guess. But I just was so pleasantly surprised to hear that. I've never heard you sing. Have I heard you sing any Stevie tunes? We were talking earlier about you doing Love's in Need of Love, but I think I did hear you sing that once. Is there a video of you doing that?
There's probably a video or something out there,
But those first 4 albums, or 5, are they 5 that he did after his contract? Like Music of My Mind, Intervisions, Talking Book, Fulfilling This.
Yeah,
Hotter Than July, is that?
That's prior, right? Isn't that earlier?
I thought that was part of that period.
That's later, isn't it?
Is it? I don't know.
Yeah,
no.
I think that was later. Yeah.
Okay, and then because I've talked at length with Malcolm Cecil about all that stuff, and then Songs in the Key of Life, and I'd say those I listened to more of that stuff probably than most any other music on the planet, and so to hear you.
Oh, me too. Yeah, that's all, hugely influential to me, and just the way those records sound.
Yeah. Just the way he sounds.
Just everything about him. That's
the force.
If I have something, just to look up to and to strive towards, that's a huge light of inspiration right there.
Same.
And when I dream about playing all the instruments, that's my inspiration. I'll never be what Stevie Wonder is, but I like to try, to do it in my way. Right. You know what I mean? And I like to see what it has to teach me.
Yeah, you can always tell, like when he's on drums, or when you can, it just has the same feeling.
Yeah, it just makes you smile.
Yeah,
you just feel like how big he's smiling when he's playing that drum beat. Like, you just feel that emotion.
No, it's a light, like you said. I think that's what you just said. It's a beacon.
Yeah, I guess if I had a religion, it's kind of like Stevie Wonderism.
Yeah,
or maybe. It's like when I put that on, it's like going to church. That's what it is.
Same.
And definitely probably listen to that on the way home now.
Yeah, man. yeah, I can. So that's why we should do a night of Stevie and Jeff Beck at some point.
Oh, yeah.
I think those two would be
a
match for a good evening of music.
We should do that.
Yeah,
we should.
Or you should just do it because you're fine on your own.
Well, no. Listen, man. I have yet to really do a Stevie tribute.
Woo.
I would have my hands full just thinking about the vocals. That will be more than I can handle.
Yeah.
So just to do that, I
think it would pair perfectly with the early Rod Stewart, Jeff Beck stuff as well. Those songs could all
right on.
I think that would be like a nice funky evening.
That would be cool.
Yeah. So I guess we can leave it on that.
Heck yeah. Well, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. Make sure you subscribe to Joey's Patreon.
Yeah, do yourself a favor.
Instagram, Facebook, I assume, YouTube.
Patreon, you have to have how many hours of material would you say are up on your Patreon at this point?
I have no idea.
It's a lot.
There's you can find like all my new songs, and then there's tons of concerts, live concerts.
Yeah, there's hours and hours of concert footage. Incredible stuff from when, like, I never seen this stuff from like 2012. I think there was a concert in there where you have long hair, and because I'm used to this.
Oh yeah. I had to miss the long hair.
I miss hair.
Yeah, hair was great while it lasted.
Both of you can kiss my ass with your nice hairlines, by the way.
Don't be deceived. It's it's as nice
really
as it
kiss my
seems.
ass then. If that's
I'm losing it on the side.
But
I tried to get a little bit of the mohawk the other day. The barber wouldn't do it. She was just like, it's gonna look stupid. I was like,
My girlfriend cuts my hair, and she says the same thing.
I couldn't fight my way through it. I was like, well, you're a professional, I guess.
you just had to go with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. All right. You know better than I do. I don't have to look at it.
But yes, do yourself a favor, Joey Eppard at why am I spacing on the name again? Patreon. There you go. Sorry,
Patreon.com/Joey Eppard.
There you go.
That's a good spot to get in there, and you can unlock like basically most of the content for the cheapest $3.33.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. You'll be busy in there for a while.
But not to discourage anyone who wants to do the 333. Like, by all means, we could become besties. I will do house concerts, massages, whatever.
Oh, all right.
I'm gonna have to subscribe to this. Well, thank you, Joey. I mean, this was awesome. It's great meeting you and talking to you and learning more.
Likewise.
About awesome music.
Thanks for
Minutemen,
coming
man,
by.
come on.
Yeah, seriously.
I'm feeling you there.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it.
That's
Is there
it.
anything else?
All right.
Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.
Peace
and
out.
We'll do the Joey, will you join us for the